But this is a Bell book, which was a great publisher before the days of Batson, and they had a whole host of good books. And this was I think the third chess book I got after two introductory beginners books, and it was well beyond me, but I still liked the text in it, and so there's something interesting about it. And as I got better, the games meant more and more to me. It's called Larsen's Selected Games of Chess. He doesn't call it his best games, advisedly. It's selected, and it's not in. Bell have gone under a long time ago. The Harding
does cover.
Oh, you have it, okay.
Yeah.
The Harding Simpol imprint have done a version of it, which they call Larsen's Best Games, with a subtitle of Selected Games. And he very precisely in the book says he doesn't want to call it the best games, which is a bit annoying. But anyway, so the book is available at the moment. Now, his real name, as John has pointed out in his introduction, is Jürgen Bent Larsen. So Bent is his middle name, but he's always been known as Bent Larsen since he started playing chess. Really, this book was published in 1970, reprinted in 1971, which it sold well at the time. He has a very distinctive style of writing, a very dry sense of humour, and with the exception of Fischer, he's the only player who's ruthlessly objective in his analysis. I wish he'd written more. You know, he had a number of books, but he only really wrote this book that I'm aware of in English anyway. And he's a great writer, I think, in all sorts of ways. And he puts colour into it, which is one of the reasons I like seeing annotations with some colour in them, not just bald variations. And you know, they're not all colourful. But I'm going to do a couple of games which have got some interesting annotations in them, and I find them amusing anyway. Yeah, but that's not really. There's no text in that, is there? That's just positions, I think. I got it from a library a long time ago.
Well, I would recommend this book. It's extremely difficult to get hold of.
But it's just positions. There's not much text. Is there much text in it?
There's a fair bit, actually. Yeah, there's a fair bit.
There are quite detailed explanations. I mean, I've got the book myself.
Yeah.
But is he funny? Is he amusing it?
But the bit about the section of the book that I think is unusual.
Yeah.
Is there's a section called Find the Master Move, which is kind of quite common.
Yeah.
But what is unusual is the chapter 2. Sorry, Find the Plan.
Oh right, excellent. Yeah.
And actually, I think it's an unusual collection of positions where you haven't got to work out a specific continuation, but it invites you to come up with the correct plan given the position.
Yeah.
I think
it's quite unusual.
I think it's exceptional. It's really good for anyone that does any training or any coaching as well.
Was that unusual at the time it was published? I don't remember seeing. You see it now, but I don't remember seeing much of that.
I think it was pretty unusual at the time. This book was published in. I mean, funny enough, the editor was someone people may know, Adam Hart Davis.
Oh, he used to play for Yorkshire TV and the Leeds Evening.
Yeah. Adam Hart Davis is a television presenter.
Yeah.
This was Oxford University Press, 1982. Unfortunately, not long after this came out, there was another one came out, and the word Larsen was replaced by Keen. Don't get that one.
Well, let me just, before I start with the game, let me just talk again about Larsen, because I mean, most of the people on this call are relatively, how can I put this, mature, and will know of Bent Larsen, will know of his history. Some people won't, and they won't know who he is now. He was at that time one of him and Fischer, and he was before Fischer. He was the only player who could compete with the Soviets. He was by far the best Western player by a distance. In fact, the general opinion is he was the best Scandinavian player until Magnus Carlsen came along, and certainly better than Wolf Anderson. So people forget what a great player he was, actually. And in the year after this book was published, in 1970, there was a USSR against the rest of the world match. And Fischer hadn't played for 1.5 years at that point. and Larsen had been sort of laying waste to tournaments all around the world. And Fischer wanted to play board one. Larsen objected, and Fischer conceded. So, which if anybody knows anything about Fischer, that's a very unusual circumstance. So Fischer played board two, Larsen played board one. On board two, Fischer beat Petrosian. There was 4 rounds. On board two, Fischer beat Petrosian 3-1, and on board one, Larsen drew 1.5 all with Spassky, and then Stein stood into Spassky in the last game because he wasn't well or something, and he beat him. So he won 2.5, 1.5. And that included, if anybody is aware of the brevity that Larsen lost to Spassky, where he plays Rook H1 as a tempo gaining rook sack, that was in that match as well. And he still managed to draw against Spassky and then beat Stein at the end. So a fine player, and a very dry sense of humour. There's some other games.
Just going to add, Mark.
Yeah.
If you're interested in that match, then I'd highly recommend this book.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the whole match.
It's the whole match. I reviewed this recently, actually. So
I wouldn't mind getting that.
It's got its own page marker, which is unusual.
Who publishes it?
Informant or Sahovsky Informator, or
yeah.
however you want to call it.
I think the television was involved in that.
And it's hardback, which is unusual.
Oh, I get it then, because that was an very interesting match.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a bit about Larsen. And for those who didn't know him, and those who might need reminding, I mean, a remarkable player in many ways. And before I start again, I'll talk about his choice of openings, because he played everything virtually. I mean, a game I'm not showing tonight, but there was an extraordinary game he played against Bronstein with the King's Indian. He didn't play the King's Indian very much. He only played it a handful of times. He went to an interzonal and turned up with the Bishop's opening, Philidor's defence, all sorts of offbeat stuff. There's a line he played, which I'll mention in one of the other games I'll show tonight.
Mark, can I just jump in very quickly? So I think that when he went to that tournament, he just finished his national service, and he hadn't really had much time to study playing chess. So he literally went in there on the fly with sort of a few very, very basic openings.
He doesn't say that. He says he researched them and he played them because they haven't been played for a long time. He has some new ideas in them. That's what he says.
Okay.
But no, he wasn't punting it. He didn't do that. He didn't play them all the time. He got shock value out of them. People weren't expecting any of this stuff. Although he did, he played the fiddle quite a lot actually. But the other things he didn't play so much. So, but he played everything. He played all sorts. I mean, it was let me be clear. It was a different time in those days. Let's also be clear about that. So there weren't computers. There weren't digital clocks. There were adjournments in tournament games if they got that far. It was a different time. In the various games he doesn't talk about a second. He's always doing the analysis himself, whereas the Soviets all had seconds. And I don't think many of the Western players did because they couldn't afford it. Anyway, so that's the sort of background to Larsen. Now I'm going to start off with quite a long game, but I'm picking it because I like the commentary, and I will quote from some of that. So let me just share the game to start with, if I can find it. Okay, can everybody see that? It's clear board, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so this is a game played in Mar del Plata in Argentina against Eric Eliscazes, who was not a young player at that point. Hang on, I've just got to let Alfredo in. Is he in? Alfredo, you there? Well, I've admitted him. Okay. So let me start. He's quoting from an article he wrote in Skarkbladet, which is was at the time anyway, the Danish chess magazine, probably still is, in February 1959. So this game was played in 1958. My comments from Skarkbladet under the headline "Violent Attack of Cold." Chess masters do not talk as much of sore behinds as cyclists in a 6-day race. But except for that, there are certain similarities when it comes to eloquence after an unexpectedly bad showing in the spurt for points. One of the most popular excuses is a cold. It is convenient and undefined. It may mean this or that. Often it means nothing at all. It is good to have such an explanation ready. So I have hesitated to bring my game against Eliscazes and its story to the knowledge of a broader public. However, the fact remains that it is a good game, something to show and to brag about. It was an exciting game where both players were under heavy attack. The one which Eliscazes had to ward off will be seen from the moves. The one against myself was conducted with great violence by a tremendous army of bacteria. The weather in Mar del Plata in the Argentine autumn is like first-class Danish summer weather. But one day suddenly we were served cold and rain, and I had not been dressed for it. On the next day when I had to play Eliscazes, I coughed incessantly, and I needed every one of the big supply of handkerchiefs in my pockets. Larsen is black here, and he plays the Dutch. And he comments immediately at this point. His first comment is, "Do you know Eliscazes?" Until 1939, the Austrian candidate for the World Championship, now a strong and solid grandmaster, was a little too passive in his play, without the fighting spirit and ambition of his youth. Against such players, I like to play the Dutch, as often they potter about too much so that you can just sit and board up on the sack on the king's side. The thing I like about that is, do you know Eliscazes? He's talking to his readers. Yes, of course I know Eliscazes. I meet him frequently for coffee. No. Right, so we go through an opening a bit. Sorry, we'll go back there. So his next comment is, as expected, White chooses a solid but not very aggressive setup. He told me afterwards that he had played it several times and Black usually played Queen h5 next, when he played e3, often followed by Knight fd2. The idea of it all was to stop Black's attack before it got started. White's play in the centre and queenside would come later. In Eliscazes' opinion, the text move, Knight bd7, was very fine. That was not clear to me when I played it. It cost me half an hour. I don't have to do with chess. It just showed how miserable I was. Well, rook e1, I need to come to this, rook e1. He says, now Eliscazes did not like e3 because of the reply g5. He did not know where to put his king's knight. Now the answer to g5 is knight f1. All these too careful manoeuvres I was unable to appreciate. I blew my nose and went straight ahead. At this point, he played f takes e4. Again, here I took half an hour for one move. Pilnik, who was an Argentinian grandmaster, said later that he had been betting with himself that I would capture with the pawn, for you must obey your aggressive nature. Against knight takes e4, White can play the simplifying knight d2. Queen g6, f3. Right, he played f3, right? Bar those speculations were unnecessary. Eliscazes did not dream of playing for the win of a pawn, and it must be admitted that Queen c2 hitting e4, e5, cd5, ed5, Queen c7, rook f7 will give Black excellent attacking chances. On the other hand, he's a pawn up, but he can bring his queen back. I don't know. Probably should have done it, but what do you do? Eliscazes is solid, as Larsen said earlier on. So he played f3. Right, now it was Eliscazes' turn to think for a very long time, while I walked around coughing, but with an encouraging feeling that I had a good position. Of course, White cannot win a pawn with d takes e5, d takes e5. Now, obviously, if bishop takes e5, rook f3, and if knight takes e5, what does Black play now? Then, do you think? Anybody? I mean, it's quite subtle, I think, but in a way, it's obvious. Don't know.
Mark?
Queen h5.
Yeah. Sorry?
Queen h5.
Queen h5.
No, he just takes it then. It's pawn down.
How about Queen H6?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
How about Queen H6?
Uh,
Oh no, the rook knight's on pre, isn't it? No, it's
Yeah.
not. Of course it's not. Yeah, the knight is on pre.
He's on prees, yeah. It's on prees, yeah. So it's less often that he gives a check. Where does he give a check?
Oh, Queen B6. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not Queen B6.
Now he's coming in on, it's either mate or win of the queen. But he's got to play
Something on
bishop
D4.
d4. If he plays queen d4, bishop c5 is a bit strong. So he plays bishop d4. Yeah?
Yeah.
So he plays bishop c5 anyway. And if knight f3, rook takes f3, winning.
Yeah.
So not rocket science, but an slightly unusual continuation with bishop c5 winning outright. You know? So I think that's quite an unusual line, actually. I'll be bearing that in mind for my future duchess myself, actually. Now, at this point, Escarzi played bishop c3, which is a bit, whoops, cancelled. No, he didn't. What did he play? E4, E5. Okay, according to me, he played bishop c3. Why didn't he play? Okay.
You need to go back a move. Pawns on D6.
Oh, thank you. Of course it is. 2 moves, in fact, yeah. They played bishop c3. So his idea, well, we'll see what his idea is. He talks about it. He says d5 is uninviting. Closing the centre means giving peace to his exercises on the king's side, and the good replies bishop g5. The surprising text move, bishop c3, tries to protect f2 and h2 with rook a2.
Ah.
So black plays bishop g5 anyway. White knocks it off. He may or may not do that. It's not unreasonable. So rook a2. Now he plays queen h6 with a subtle threat. And what do you think white plays here? He's played rook a2 to defend h2, so he's going to play bishop f3.
Yep.
Now, Larsen gives us a question mark and says, a natural continuation of the chosen defensive strategy. White does not like to weaken his pawns. Fair enough. Nevertheless, h3 was better. For instance, e4, bishop d4, knight e5, bishop e5, d5, queen d5 check, king h8, king h2, and white seems to hold his own. So that's unbelievably that's okay, it's a bad bishop, but it's pretty equal, that, you know, I think. I can't see that black's got anything there really. I mean, he can still play, but
No, you can't play G5 because the pawn's on pre.
yeah. So it's probably equal, but Edisgazi has had a plan. Bishop c3, bishop rook a2, bishop f3. That's his plan. So that's what he's played. So I'm going to go back here.
Sorry, Mark. In that line, couldn't black have interposed with the bishop instead of moving his king?
Yeah, then e5 drops off though.
And then h3 drops off.
No, okay, let's go back to that then. I mean,
sorry, I don't know if it's good or bad.
No, I'm sure Larsen would have mentioned it though, but I don't know. Let's have a look.
It's probably too.
I've lost the position now. Where am I? We're playing. What are we playing? D takes e5. No.
H3.
H3.
H3. That's right. H3. Yeah. So knight f6, I assume.
Pawn takes
No,
pawn.
pawn takes pawn, I think.
Oh, pawn takes pawn
Takes pawn.
first. Yeah, that's right. That's the line he gives. Yeah. Knight e5.
Knight e5.
Takes. Queen d5 check. I mean, when do you put the bishop in now?
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know.
Oops. Cancel.
Queen B7.
Sorry? Yeah, queen b7, yeah.
Queen e5.
Well, either. I'm not sure what's white's getting here. What's your h3, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's doing much though, is it? I think he can pick up probably b7 actually, because he can pick up c7 as well. Or e5 and c7, I don't know. Maybe e5.
Yeah, maybe.
Picking up 2 pawns and you can pick up that one, but yeah, the rook's defending everything.
Yeah, probably not enough. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just wanted to.
No, it's worth looking at. I think it's a bit optimistic. I mean, I don't think. I know what you're trying to do, but I don't think. The problem now is there are no knights left anymore, and it's quite hard to attack without a knight in this sort of position, I think.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, you might be able to get some play on the third rank though. Don't know.
Well, Larsen didn't think so, but
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, I'm sure he's right.
yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough.
Takes on E5.
Sorry.
If he takes on E5.
Yeah, E5 probably. I mean, but most things are good here. I don't think Black's got enough pieces to be able to, with White's rooks where they are, to be able to do anything. But I mean, we could stick it on Fritz, but of course none of these games have been put on Fritz, and I haven't put them on Fritz because that would be unfair given how the circumstances in which the games were played and analysed.
Yeah.
So I haven't done that. So he played Bishop F3, which was his plan in the first place, not weakening himself. So he takes him here anyway. Ooh. It's knight E5, E5, D5. The difference now here is the same line. This is on pre, it's on F3, if the queen moves away. So he played Queen D3, but played Bishop E6. He plays A4. So it stops. I suppose at some point he's worried about A4 himself. That's a bit weakening, I would have said, but I'm not sure. He's got to do it anyway in the end. Okay, D8. And Larsen says at this point, Black's advantage is obvious. He has the better bishop, the rooks are on open files, and D4 is an incurable weakness. Eliscardes hopes to save himself in the endgame, and his hopes are increased by my time pressure. In the continuation, I did make a few inaccuracies, but a sufficient advantage is preserved and kept until the adjournment. By the way, I was coughing less now, and my nose was running more slowly. I had to play quickly, no time for being ill. This is only move 25, this is a long way to go for the time control, so this is... So he goes for the queen exchange. I played Bishop H3. Okay, 1, rook D2, rook B1. Now Larsen played H5, and he says, much better was rook F6, preparing to play the king to F8 and E7, perhaps even to B4 exclamation mark, and creating the possibility of rook B6. So he gives H5 a question mark actually. Oops. Right. What's going on?
He quite liked throwing his H pawns down the board though, didn't he?
Right, that's another thing. I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. There's a section at the end of the book, just before the last game, which is the 12th move win against Potso, where he talks about my style, and he talks about that as well. And he did play his H and A pawns a lot, and people think this is all to do with Alpha Zero, but Larsen was doing it way ahead of the game, and he talks about a little bit about why he does flank attacks so often. And I'll do that at the end if that's okay.
Can't White play rook E2 here? You could play rook on F to D8 against that pawn. Yeah, then he plays king F2.
Yeah, I don't know about. So he can play it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, probably.
this is not. I'm not saying this is an immediate win or even a win at all. As you'll find out a bit. But clearly, Black's much better. So rook A2, he probably comes across to take the D file. He could take the rook and then take the D file. Actually, I mean, clearly Black's still better. This is not necessarily winning, as we'll talk about when we come to the adjournment position. Okay, it is by the adjournment. It's not necessarily yet. But what did do was take it.
Oh no. Rook G2 check.
Yeah.
No, he brings the other rook down.
He does.
Oh, bishop takes H5 is a terrible mistake, isn't it?
Not really. It probably wasn't the best move, but I think it's that as bad as it looks. So you know, he's not winning immediately. He's not winning outright, is he?
I can make rook b2 now.
Level pawns. Obviously, black's better. Black was better before g5. So it's not a terrible mistake. It's just it just looks frightening. It's a surprising line though for Descartes to have played, I must say, given what he's done up till now. Rook b e1. Rook b2. Now plays rook 1 e2. Rook h e2. Now he plays bishop takes, otherwise the b pawn drops.
Wow.
Bishop e6. King f1, king f8. King e1, king e7. King d1, king d6. King c1, rook a2. King b1, rook d2. King c1, rook d4.
Yes,
So this was the adjourned position. I mean, clearly black's got every advantage going, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's winning. But you know, you fancy your chances. And what does he say? The adjourned position. Both players came during the analysis to the conclusion that it's one for black, which is not surprising. The black pieces are more active than the white ones. But as we'll see later, to actually win it is a lot more complex than it looks. And there's a plan he adopts, which I think comes back to that book with the plans in it, John, which I think is slightly surprising. So
I might just exchange the rooks here, both rook d3 and draw the ending.
what, king c5? He's gonna get crushed off the board, I think. There.
Yes.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's a difficult position anyway. But,
All right.
so he plays king c5 anyway. King c3, c6, bishop f3, rook d8, bishop e2, rook h8. So
Wow.
he's coming on the h file now. Bishop g2, rook h2, bishop f3. Right. Okay, so he's got a good position. He's got his pieces in all the best possible squares. What's his winning plan? Well, I'm not saying this is easy, but anybody got any thoughts about how black should play to win this?
Gonna be
I wouldn't have found it, by the way. But,
is it a pawn break of some sort?
not yet.
Ah.
In fact, not at all. But it could be. But there's a more a surprising plan, I think. Anyway. It's not an immediate plan. It's a strategy. You know, he thinks that it's hard to see. I think maybe I'm being unfair asking the question. Actually,
Does he play for a pixel 2-pawn set?
no, he doesn't do that. It's much less dramatic than that. Actually,
Okay.
what he plays for is to exchange the bishops.
Yes, but
Now, is that surprising? Is that surprising? It is to me.
I was actually looking at that, thinking, you know, with the rooks on the board, then white is sort of white is actually trying to defend 2 pawns, and black's rook's active. So
Well, that's exactly right, Tony. That's exactly right.
And then you're probably playing sort of g4, rook f3 or something in a favourable way. Yeah.
So if they come off, he's going to get into Zugzwang. Is what happens in the end, actually, because he's got too many pawns. The e pawn is also coming off if you're not careful. He can't move his king because king b4 is going to be lethal. So, this terrible bishop and black's better bishop, but the correct strategy is to take them off. And in fact, white doesn't take them off because he realises it's losing, so he plays a different sequence. Anyway, so I think that's an unusual plan. He does as well. He says, in a way, it is strange that the exchange of black's good bishop against white's bad one is part of the winning procedure. If white prevents this exchange with g5, the black bishop returns to e6. So with g4, the black bishop returns to e6, and white cannot defend the g pawn. So the black plays bishop e7 to bring that baron to h5. So white doesn't want to exchange it because he realizes that will be lost. I'll show a line actually if I can just show that. So if I don't have got it in my notes, I hope I have. Yeah, rook takes bishop. Rook ending is hopeless. Whoops. Whoa. Rook takes h5.
Rook f3.
Yeah, rook f3, correct. Rook h3. Rook d3, g4.
Trying to suck one, isn't he?
He is, yeah. Rook h2. And when you see it, it looks so ridiculously simple.
And
b6. Well, it hasn't got a move, doesn't have a pawn. But that's the only move. That's the only move to win the game as well. Unbelievable. Of course, you know he's had time to look at this in the German analysis, which but still I think he'd have seen this in the over the board anyway. I think, and it's all to do. This is all to do with rook activity, isn't it? You know, black's pawns are a bit weak as well, but black's doing the attacking and white's doing the defending. So that's why he didn't. That's why Adescalzi didn't allow the bishop exchange. But things get a bit desperate after this. So bishop c8. Oops. No, not b6. He didn't play b6. Sorry, he didn't play b6. What did he play? Oh yes, he played the excellent bishop e2.
Huh.
So what he says is not b6, now g4, because the bishop's the other side of the pawns now.
yeah,
When black's advantage, he doesn't. This is my wording, but black's advantage is nominal. Yeah, clearly black's got a better bishop, better rook and all that, but he can't do anything anymore.
No.
I would almost certainly have allowed that in the game and only drawn it. You know, that's what good players do. You know. Sorry. So bishop c8, bishop e2, bishop b7, and now bishop back to g4, and that bishop's not getting out. And he knew that when he played the whole line.
Wow.
So what white did here was bishop c6. Larsen says desperation. After rook e3, bishop d1. Oops, sorry. What have I done wrong with this? Something wrong with this.
black's turn, isn't it?
Rook
That's white's
d3.
turn,
Sorry. Rook g2. That's it. Sorry. Rook g2. I think. Did he play first? No, I can't remember.
White to move.
Eh? It's back to me. What just taken on b7?
No, because
Why
black's
don't you play bishop c4?
Oh, bishop d4. Sorry, yeah, rook d3. Thank you. Sorry, apologies. Rook d3, rook g2. And now he plays bishop c6. And he says, after rook e3, bishop d1. Idea being?
Rook c2, Joe.
Rook c2.
Yeah, oops. So if white plays something, you know, I don't know, bishop there, say. Rook checks, king there, rook
Rook
there,
b2.
and the b pawn's dropping, and then everything else behind it. That's another nice idea. Bringing the bishop to d1 is the other. When the bishops don't come off, that's the other winning plan.
Very good.
So white plays bishop c6, and then, well, I'm not gonna play anymore. Bishop c6. It goes on to move 75, and you know he just wins easily. Piece up. Now, then at the end he says, so after this, I'm not in a position to use cold as an excuse. But there are other possibilities. For instance, overworked by my studies or sore behind. So I like that game.
yes, nice.
I mean, it's it is hard to believe that the whole bishop f3 idea is not is tactically bad. That's the problem. H3 is better because bishop f3 tactically doesn't work because of bishop is on prees in some of the good lines for white. Okay. Next one, there was a shorter game and much more exciting in a way. And if I can find it. Well, this is a game from the Hovens tournament, which is now the Tartar Steel. Hovens was a Dutch steel manufacturer, which got taken over by, I think, somebody else, and then Tartar. So this is at Beverwijk in Holland. It's the post-Christmas tournament. Larsen's white in this game, and he's playing Van Skeltinger, who's a Dutch player, who he would expect to beat comfortably. So he plays f4. He played the birds quite a lot actually. He beat Spassky with it, in fact. Now he played bishop e2, and he says, instead of one special variation, which is b4, was his variation. That's the variation he beat Spassky with, amongst other players, very high standard players. It looks wrong to me, but I ought to look at it really and see if I can play it. Bishop g7, castles, b3, b6, a4, bishop b7, queen e1, c5. Now he plays knight bd2, which gives a question mark to, and says doesn't go well with a4. Worth consideration was knight a3 followed by bishop d1 and e4, which is a fairly standard Dutch continuation. I mean, this is a Dutch at tempo up, and that doesn't, as most of you know, being a tempo up in some line doesn't always work very well. It's something to do with the timing of moves, you know. I think it's okay in this line actually. But he prefers knight a3, bishop d1, and e4, which is a standard Dutch idea. C6, queen h4, e6. I think it's rook f2, which is a slightly surprising move. But okay.
Rook f2?
Yeah. Well, it says here, yeah. Knight b4.
Bishop d1.
Sorry, knight e1, yeah.
Oh, I was going to play bishop d1. I think he's going to play g4, isn't he?
Not yet.
It's a bonkers game.
Well, bear with me. Don't forget, right. So one of the things you'll find out about Larsen, he says it himself in the book several times, is that he draws far fewer games than all the other GMs at that time, and he loses some in a tournament. I think he ever played a tournament he didn't lose at least one game, but he won loads. So he took risks. He was willing to take risks against many players, but especially weaker players than him. And I'm sure he wouldn't give him my money to be dealing with because it would be gone in about a year, I reckon. But you know, he's not averse to risk, so we can do it that way. You know. So knight d6. And what does he play now? Who said
G4.
G4, yeah.
Caveman stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, caveman, but one of the best players in the world, though. Don't forget, let's not forget that at the time.
Yeah. I play this in the London.
And he beat Spassky with it also, so you know.
Yeah.
And Spassky is nobody's mug. Well, apart from Fischer's possibly. But knight d(f)(3). However, he's not pretending this is all wonderful, by the way, and as you'll find out in a minute. Knight f7, c3, knight c6. What does he say here? So after f5, he says the Dutch master built a position that makes it nearly impossible for white to start off against his king. In order to create new problems, White sets up a stone move. That's what he's doing here. So his next move is d4.
Yeah.
Now Black plays knight a5, and he says it would be better to have to put the a pawn on a2 exclamation mark. Quite right. That's always the problem with these things. Playing a4 too early. So he covers b3.
Oh,
That plays c4.
isn't it a fairly crap bishop anyway?
Sorry?
Isn't c1 a bad bishop anyway?
Yeah. It's a terrible bishop.
Right. Bear with the game, okay?
Okay.
Let's be clear, this isn't a good position, right? Allow me to get to the bishop. So he plays knight e5. That takes with a knight, f takes, and then goes knight b3. And what do you think he does? Takes it? He takes it. Of course he does. He just played bishop d1 to take it. Now, he says at this point, not very nice for White to have to play without his king's bishop. The other bishop is not worth very much. But you must see the bright side. Black's last move removed one of his pawns from the centre.
Yeah.
White would like to place the knight on f4 and push the h pawn, but Black does not allow this.
Oh, didn't he miss a?
Sorry?
Didn't he miss a trick there, Mark?
I doubt it.
Instead of playing rook f4, is it not possible to play e4?
I imagine f4 probably. I'm not sure that's like, yeah, I imagine I don't know. That's a good point.
Outnumbered.
I think he'd have done it if he could have done, so if he thought it was any good. Let's have a look.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine f4, don't you?
Yeah, and then the white squared bishop becomes very strong.
Yeah.
Bishop takes f4.
Rook takes.
Rook takes.
Fair point. Not f4 then. What does he do then? What does he do? Interesting question. Queen
Well,
f4?
if he ever takes your pawn, if after f4 he ever took your pawn on e4,
Hang on.
you'd get your pawns rolling in the centre, wouldn't you?
Okay. I mean, it's unlikely that Larsen missed this, but let's see what's wrong with it. Or why it's not specific, why it's not so good for Black. Because bear in mind, Black's better here, So this had better be winning for Black, otherwise he's supporting a good position. So what if he just comes back?
Well, then he takes on f5.
Yes,
True.
That's
Yeah.
playing the pawn.
this is good for white.
Well, one assumes it isn't, but we can put the engine on. I can't see it at the moment what the problem is. But do you really think Larsen would have missed this? Is the question. He might have done. He doesn't mention it in the notes at all.
Yeah, I suspect he does play f4 actually, and just sacks the f pawn to get his bishop working.
Yeah, is it working? That's the question, isn't it?
Excellent question.
Yeah, but then you got
Where's he going to play it? That's the question.
F4. He has
f4.
to.
right. Bishop takes.
Or rook takes, but say
Or
bishop
you
takes.
could really rook takes.
Now move the queen back, e7 or somewhere.
Where?
e7?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's not that great.
Mind
Well,
you, you're probably going to lose your a4 pawn at some stage.
Yeah, I think that's the main. I mean,
You're going to lose the white squared bishop's going to come beaming down.
it is. White's going to have to go here, I think, and blockade it. Because if it's allowed to open up, it's lethal. But I think this isn't so bad, is it?
What does the engine say? Do we want to use the engine?
Oh, where's the engine?
Analysis.
Analysis. Yeah, I'm looking at analysis. Where is it?
Default Kibitzer.
It's there. It's on the home page. This is an old version of ChessBase, by the way. It's 12.
Not f4, yeah. Or rook af1, yeah.
It's about equal.
Yeah.
Could you go back a bit though? It might not agree with this line.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, I think it thinks Queen G4. Yeah, I was wondering about that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it makes sense actually. Does make
Yeah.
sense.
So that's equal. And bearing in mind black's better, that would be a bad decision. But White wants to win. Remember, he just said that. Well, he hasn't said it. Right, let me go back to what I was saying. He doesn't look at e4, doesn't mention it, which is surprising. I agree. He does say, at this, perhaps my opponent was so he played rook f. Let's go back. So he played rook f4, and black. Oops, rook f4. Black played queen e7, and Larsen says, what does he say? Perhaps my opponent was ready to draw rook f2, queen g5. Perhaps not. I saw no purpose in investigating this as I wanted to win. Hence e4 doesn't look like it. It looks equal, but it's no more than that. So he doesn't mind being worse. Someone's got winning chances.
Rook h4.
Yeah. Bishop
No,
h8.
yeah, not yet. He played bishop d2 first.
Yeah, that's sensible.
Black played bishop a6, and now he played rook h4. And his comment is very risky. This is question mark, exclamation mark. He uses this. This is very risky. But in the first place, I'm ready to take a risk, as he always is. And secondly, black is ready to improve his position considerably, bringing the bishop to e4, which is why he played bishop a6.
Can he play bishop h8 now? Because knight f4 is quite strong, isn't it?
Knight f4 is coming.
Well, hang on. It's black's move.
Yeah, black has to play bishop h8, doesn't he?
Black plays g5. Rook h7, because he's seen bishop e2. And at this point, so have a look at that position for a bit while I read out. Let me just get the analysis because that's cheating. So he says at this point, at this moment, the Dutch master Spaniard entered the tournament hall. He asked Donna if anything was going on, and the Grandmaster said, yes, Larsen has a lost game. I'm sure this was a correct evaluation of my position. Up to now, black has played better in this game, but the situation is still so difficult for both sides that it can be useful to take advice in the words of a famous French general. My centre is broken, my flanks are retreating, I attack. Spaniard sat down right next to our table. He is very short-sighted to see the drama.
Well, black's threatening bishop g4, which
He is threatening bishop g4, yeah. So let me just keep reading. He talks about something like playing queen h6, which was wrong anyway. But he says, looking at such variations as these, you realise that something very special must be done. Bishop g4 is a threat. Maybe quietly sacrifice and play on, but it is not inviting. However, fantastic combinations are hidden in this position. In the middle of the misery, it must be remembered that White's position is not hopeless. At this juncture, he is a pawn up. He has strong centre pawns. The black king is not very well protected by pawns. Slowly, you see the counter chances and play. What did he play? I mean, the chance you see this about zero, but some give it a go.
There's not queen h6 then.
No, he does analyse that and out to a loss. He says black has several continuations. The simplest queen f7, e6, bishop h6 were a favourable ending, and 29 queen f6 is even stronger. So that's definitely not winning for him. And what he's playing now is a slight con in a way. It's not obvious at all, I don't think. It's a remarkable idea. The whole idea is remarkable.
knight f4.
No, he played c4. However, bear that in mind, Paul. c4 now, and black goes wrong immediately, and he played bishop c4. And Larsen says black goes wrong. He overlooks the answer. After d takes c4, bishop c3, followed by an exchange sacrifice, black gets good chances. Suddenly his bishop is strong and passed pawns in the centre must always be respected. But black should play the sharp rook ac8. Oops. Then c takes d5, rook c2 is good for him. As his pawn on b3 may suddenly become a strong passed pawn. And if bishop c3, rook takes c3 is winning. But of course, there are many variations, and white has a very impressive pawn centre pawns. Instead of c takes d5, white can complicate matters even further with e4. One effect of this move is to square e3 for the knight. However, sadly enough, black gets strong threats on the f file after f takes e4. But it may become very complicated, and at least white does not lose without getting his pieces into play. But black wanted to avoid complications. He thinks he has a clear advantage and sees c4 as sheer desperation. So he's taken it with the bishop.
What was wrong with bishop g4?
Queen h6.
Got to play queen h6.
Yeah.
What's wrong with bishop c4? Hang on. Let me get out of this. What's wrong with bishop h4? It's a very good question. I'm glad you asked me that.
Queen h5.
It takes it.
Takes it, yeah, no.
No,
gonna-
he's just played
Take
bishop
queen h6.
c4. He can't
the only
take
move
it
that
on
doesn't
queen
use the
h5. If
Sorry?
he plays bishop c4, he can't take it if he plays queen h5.
He's
We're
played
looking at bishop
in the game,
g4.
he's played bishop c4, yeah? That's the game.
Yeah.
That's okay for black, isn't it? I don't see white's threat here.
Queen,
No.
queen h5 maybe.
Nor did Van Scheltingen, which is why he played it. So I believe you said it earlier on, Paul, actually.
Knight f4.
Yeah. And Larsen gives this 2 exclamation marks. A fantastic change of scenery. If black does not take this knight, white gets a very strong attack anyway, while the black queen's bishop is suddenly passive. So he takes it. Why not? He still hasn't seen it. What's next move?
King f2.
Correct. Well done, Colin. Bishop e3.
Oh, he's giving me a good bishop now.
f4. Well, ish. Bishop d2.
Yeah.
And now obviously rook g1 is the threat. And you must, just think of those moves. He plays c4, knight f4, and king f2. And Van Scheltingen must have been an absolute shock because he thought he was playing a safe sequence with bishop c4. And he played king f7 now.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
Why? What's wrong with rook f7?
Rook g1.
Yeah, it's just defending.
He's threatening rook h8.
Rook h8. We're going to do it. And if king f8, still rook h8. It's mating. I'll go through that.
Oh,
Rook
yeah.
f7. Rook g1.
Rook g1 threatens rook h8 mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you go king f8, rook h8 is still mate. Yeah. Bishop takes, queen takes. Yeah. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So that doesn't work. What Larsen says, the only defense was queen g5, rook g1, queen takes rook check, queen takes queen.
Mm.
He says, which must be insufficient in the long run because he's got rook and a bishop, but and white's got the queen. Sometimes stubborn defense saves half a point, but Van Scheltingen was short of time and no doubt in shock. But this has to be winning. Has to be winning, I think. All right.
Yes. Yeah.
So he didn't do that. He went king f7, which loses 2.
Probably queen h5 check.
Yes, and then not very difficult. I mean, it's straightforward, but
Queen g4.
yeah. And Spain and Van Scheltingen resigned at that point. So
Yeah,
I think
wonderful
I think c4 is a remarkable idea because he had to have seen all the rest of it before playing c4 and realised his position was that desperate he needed to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a swindle, but it's the mark of a class player, in my opinion. I mean, not many people would have done that.
No, it's a tremendous conception just to think of it,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. As I say, he talks about Spain being short of time. He must have been in shock, though, mustn't he? I mean, I would have been.
Yeah.
Mark, going back a few moves, I
Yeah.
was thinking getting my king into H1. Was I missing something? Because that would also expose rook G1.
Yes, I know. It's interesting. He didn't mention that.
Go back a few more moves.
Yeah, I am.
Even before the C4.
What?
Oh no! After C4, bishop.
No. It has to be at this. It has to be up
Yeah.
at this point, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So why does he not play King H? Whoop.
I think it's
Bishop D3.
Bishop D3 is very
Bishop
strong.
D3. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Then Bishop E4.
Oh yeah, the bishop comes back.
And he
in.
mentioned that going to E4 before was a dangerous threat, but he hasn't got time anymore. So I think C4, Knight F4, and King F2, remarkable idea.
It wasn't a remarkable idea.
So it's not an accurate game, but it's a game that he likes and likes to see. And he says at the end, I can find it. But it was wonderful entertainment for Spaniard, who was sat there very close with his short-sightedness, thinking that Larsen was going to lose. So that was nice.
Did Larsen play many games where he combined the birds with B3, or is that a variation of Larsen's opening?
No, he didn't. He played B4, as I said mentioned earlier on, rather than B3, and he beat Spassky with that and lots of other people. He didn't, but he obviously the game he got hammered against Spassky in the Soviet Union versus the rest of the world. He did play 1B3.
Yeah.
But he played 1B3. There are no 1B3 books games in this book, but there's plenty of birds openings. But not with B3 though. I as a Dutch player, I have on occasions played a Dutch with a B6, and it only works well against certain white formations. The white tries to play E3, Bishop D3, and early E4. Then it works, but other times you end up having to play D6, and E6 gets horribly weak. So it's not often very good to combine the two. I have found, and Larsen doesn't. But he does play B4, but that's slightly different because he's sort of what's the word I'm looking for? If Black plays Knight C6 B5, it's removing the knight from the centre. It's a flank idea with spatial things, but also the idea of driving away control of the centre, for the knight from control of the centre. So it's better motivated than B3. It's also loosening, but he was successful with it. So what can you say? But no, I've never seen him play B3 with the birds. And my experience with the Dutch is that doesn't work out very well, apart from in certain configurations. And of course, as White's playing with the birds a tempo ahead, you're not getting that information about what variation Black's playing as soon. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're sort of lacking information at that point to make the right choice on what you do. But yeah, B3 with the Dutch, it works against one line really is my experience, and not against others. And E6, because E6 becomes a horrible weakness a lot of the time when you play D6. If you don't play D6, your knight has problems getting out, because Knight C6 often gets hit with D5 in a way that's good for White. And Knight A6, you can play it, but it often doesn't get into the game for a long time. So it depends on what White's pawns and everything. But so that's why I think he doesn't do it, but he doesn't play it. So okay, we're on. This is a game against Alexander Matanovic in Zagreb in 1965, and it's a Catalan. He calls it a Catalan anyway. So let's see how it goes. So Larsen's white, Matanovic is black. So he's a Catalan.
Oh, he should take.
Sorry?
He should take.
Well, okay, this is 1965. Theory wasn't quite as good as it is now, is it up to date as it is now? And there are choices. He plays. I played the Catalan many times, and he plays the lines a lot of people play. It's a bit passive, but it's okay if Black plays it properly with time. He plays that sort of structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And normally Black ends up playing B6, Bishop B7, Rook C8, and then C5. And it's slow, but it's quite hard to get much against it, but he doesn't do that here, I don't think. And it'd be d2, b6, bishop b2, bishop b does what he does, bishop b7, rook c1, rook c8. What do we play now?
E1.
Oh, he wanted to put his queen somewhere, so he plays e3 and queen 2.
Mm.
And now he took on there, which is a bit odd. It's not. Most people play c5 in this position. But this was a long time ago, so. By the way, is anybody? I mean, I suppose a lot of you have got Fischer's 60 memorable games, or have played through it at some point. And if you look at the openings in that, there's all sorts of wacky stuff that he plays, which would never get played today. Different times, you know. Less information about us quickly. Not many books, all that sort of stuff.
Magnus Carlsen's brought a book out called 60 Memorable Games.
Oh, has he? Seriously?
Yeah, I'll probably get it.
Blimey.
Yeah, he has.
That's a bit worrying. Maybe he's gonna give up being world champion. He always looks bored a lot of the time.
I imagine the actual duration of the games would be about twice as long if it's Carlsen's.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Probably lots of endgame wins, I should think. Lots of queen gambits.
Yeah, well, he doesn't work. He plays them well, doesn't he?
Well, he does, but so does Nakamura.
Yeah, he's sort of a huge record against Nakamura and over the board chess, isn't he? Massive.
Yeah, in serious chess he has. Nakamura is pretty good at this quick play stuff, though.
He is, yeah. Even better with Bullet, I suspect. I don't know if Magnus plays Bullet. So, you know, White's got a pawn here, but it's probably not much.
Did he win a pawn?
How?
Can you go a bit slower, please?
I can do, but it's not very interesting yet. Knight e5. How? Right. Sorry. Right. Who's winning a pawn where?
No, sorry. I thought you said he won a pawn. I was going to say I can't count.
No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that.
No. I just misheard you. Sorry.
So now he's gonna. I think he's gonna double on the c file. But I mean, White's got some sort of nominal edge, but it's not much, I don't think. And now Black tries to swap the knight. And here, what do you think Larsen plays? What would you play here? Anybody?
I don't know. It's a quite complicated position.
It's quite complicated if White wants to do anything. Yeah.
Well, the knight's on pre, so he's got to do something about that.
Fair point. It's a question of where you put the knight, I suppose, or whether you exchange it. I'll give you a clue. Larsen's comment later on is, after knight takes d7, it would not have been out of place to offer a draw. And he's not interested in draws, so he didn't do that.
It's not something daft like knight c6.
No, you're quite right.
Yeah.
You can just ignore that. We'll play e5.
True.
Even better.
I was thinking knight.
It's the reason Black played rook e8 previously from d8, so it's not being hit when the knight comes to c6.
Then you playing like knight b5.
Sorry?
Are you playing knight b5?
No, knight takes
Let's
knight.
go for a kingside attack somehow. Maybe
Just
knight
take a
g4.
Yeah, knight g4, correct. Which looks pretty wacky. And Larsen's comment is, and it feels a bit like justifying it, but an attempt to combine play on the c-file with threats against Black's admittedly very solid kingside. The knight is posted rather oddly on g4, but may quickly return to events in the centre and on the queen side via e3 and c4. And as White cannot expect to win with his minor threats on the queen side, the move may be regarded as justified. And after knight takes d7 and not being out of play to offer a draw. So he's trying to win, basically. And he's trying to do something that puts the wind up Black. So Black played knight a6 here.
Ooh, don't like that.
We'll get rid of some rooks. and coming to b4, a3. And they played knight a b8. White played rook c4. I'm not sure what this is doing particularly, but okay. a6. White played queen c2. Obviously, Black's going to do something now, so he took it off. So optically, this is looking quite good. But Black now plays b5, which was the idea of, and White plays queen c3. And he says here, White has conquered the c file, absolutely praiseworthy. The logical continuation of this strategy would be to break through to the 7th rank. But after queen c, whoops, go back. But after queen c7, Black holds his own. Because what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no entry. All the entries are covered.
Mm.
There's no real weakness, and a6 is the only weakness, can't get to it. So, so he plays. Sorry, he plays queen c3.
Is he threatening knight h6 now?
Not yet.
No, yeah, you got to move that D knight first.
Yeah. So queen c3.
Well, yeah, but not h6.
So he said. So White begins to wonder, ought the knight on g4 to remain alone in its threatening attitude towards the Black king, hence the text move. So here, Black played b4, which is still okay. Bishop takes. White plays queen e3. So
And go queen g5, isn't he?
he is. So what do you think Black plays?
H6.
Ooh, no.
No.
Might be right. Basically, Bishop e7 is because that's not doing much anymore here, is it? I mean,
yeah.
And also he's potentially exposing, b3 as well. But he's he's
Okay.
So Bishop f8. So Bishop e7. Very good. White's queen g5 might become unpleasant. And then he plays rook c4. And what would you play as Black here? I know what I'd do. Almost without thinking.
Attack the rook with knight b6.
Yeah, possibly. I wouldn't do that. I'd play rook c8 to get the rooks off before White plays.
Yeah, rook c8.
Before White comes into. I mean, your move is better, Julian, actually, but you've got to see a bit to make it work. So rook c8 is very natural because otherwise queen c3 and then Then
Okay, yeah.
And he's now controlling the c file with his queen behind his rook. That's the point. So he plays rook c8, but it's a blunder, and he gives it 2 question marks, which I think is a bit harsh actually. And he says a grave mistake, one that is seen time and time again. The player defends very well for a long time and then suddenly collapses. And this is move 30. Okay, after more than 4 hours hard work, that's 2 hours each. Matanovic's concentration relaxes for a moment. He is tired and hasn't too much time left. White's last move caused some concern because after queen c3, he would have his queen both on the long diagonal and behind the rook on the open file with certain threats. So let us exchange rooks while the opportunities are there. That would be my thinking exactly, But one must be careful. Maybe the Yugoslav grandmaster foresaw my next move, but not the one after that. The most solid defense would be knight f6, which is equal, basically. Knight f6 is equal. But he's short of time, he's been under pressure, and he misses the tactic, to be fair.
Let's give us a moment to think about this.
Yeah, so you got, I am. And it's got to find the moves. I want to see 2 moves, by the way, not just one.
Knight h6.
No.
Does knight f5 work?
There's a better move. But keep going, Tony.
Right, so rook c8, then knight, no.
Knight takes e6.
Correct. I still want the next move, though.
Yeah, queen c3.
Queen c3.
Yes. Oh, I see it now. Yeah. Let's do
But he
that.
plays that first. And now?
Oh.
Queen H6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd have probably played that. I'm not sure it wins, but it might do. He didn't play it. We'll look at it in a minute, actually. He didn't play that. What did he play?
You might have rook c2.
Knight h6.
Someone said it already, knight h6, yeah.
Knight h6.
Yeah. And Matanovic resigned. But we come back to Queen h6, Julian.
No, there's probably a defence for something like Bishop F6 or something.
Maybe, yeah. Now his problem is that he's threatening mate on g7 with two pieces. So Bishop f6 is no good because that's why, you know. And he can give a check, King h3, game over.
Why is Bishop F6 no good?
F6.
Bishop
Sorry?
takes bishop.
Bishop.
Because you're threatening mate with on g7 because of the knight and the bishop, so you can get
Oh,
rid of
yeah.
one of them, but not both.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and if you play bishop f8, there's not.
Yeah, you play knight g5 against bishop f6.
Sorry?
Play knight g5 against bishop f6.
Hang on. I'm just showing this one, okay? Then that one. Well, let's go back again. What one are you saying?
Against bishop f6.
When?
No, take it and then play queen h6.
Yeah.
Bishop f6, somebody mentioned.
Just take it.
Well, you can do, but you could also play knight g5, couldn't you?
Possibly.
No, Bishop F6 quicker.
Yeah, bishop f6. Yeah, it's the same position. I mean, it's no different, you know.
Of course, mate, isn't it?
Just giving the piece up. Yeah. Right. So that I think that's quite a nice. I mean, it's surprising, and obviously Matanovic didn't notice. He probably saw knight e6, but thought I'd just take the rook.
What was
Didn't
wrong
notice
with queen
knight.
h6 instead of knight
Well,
h8?
we're going to look at that.
No, there's
I
a
don't know.
defence.
I've not looked at it, so we'll see, won't we? So rook takes rook, and we think queen h6.
That is spectacular.
It is, but it's over defence is the question.
The
The answer may be, well, we'll start with bishop f8. No, you can't do that.
Bishop f6.
Bishop F6, you take it.
No,
Take off,
bishop
David.
f8, take on f8
Second f8 with what?
with a knight. He might have rook c2. though.
If you take on f8 with the
No,
knight,
he's
don't
still.
Yeah, but the king comes across, though. King takes. You're getting out, right?
Yeah, then you play queen g7.
The king's getting. Yeah, but you're lots of material down here. King e8. Is there mate? Don't think so.
Knight h6.
No, there's too much material there.
Yeah.
if you play knight h6 and you've got king h8,
I'll
Sorry?
probably play bishop takes g7.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at that. That's possible. But it's a tempo now. There's not an immediate threat, is there? So can black exploit it? That's the
You
question.
can even take the knight.
You can take the knight.
Take the knight. Yeah, that's it. Of course, yeah. Nice try, Julie, though. Really nice move.
Yeah, miss Bishop F8.
Well, yeah. But it's a great move, though. I mean, it didn't occur to me. And Larsen doesn't mention it, but he probably wouldn't. But I think knight e6 rook takes a knight h6 check is.
Yeah.
It's a pity for Matanovic because knight f6 was just equal, but he's been under pressure the whole game, and
Rook c8 looked natural.
yeah, completely. Yeah, I'd have played it. Well, certainly because before he plays queen c3, as you said, somebody said, you know,
Yeah, I would have played it.
looks horrendous.
Knight.
And it's
Started
not.
to do
I
that,
mean,
didn't
knight e6. You know, you think, look at that. Say rook takes rook. What's he got now? And you don't. I mean, if you've got like an hour to the time control, you can probably find it as black, but you haven't, and you're under pressure. You know. So I think that's nice. I mean, he wasn't winning until quite late on, but I like the final sequence.
Very good.
Yeah.
You have to play the open Catalan next time.
These guys just see moves we wouldn't see.
I thought, yeah, it's okay. Although if Kramnik's playing it's white, he still wins. But you know. Sorry, tell me what was that? What was that? Oh, sorry.
I mean, these guys just see moves that we don't see.
Yeah. I mean that Van Schelting game was enough, but this is something. This is similar sort of idea in the sense that it's the move beyond the move. You know, that you wouldn't even look at.
That's right.
And Matanovic is a strong grandmaster. Was a strong grandmaster. He didn't see it. You know, I mean, not world class, but a strong grandmaster. He didn't see it. So, what time we've got? One more, I think. That's another short one. This is oops. Right. Have I stopped sharing? Yeah, I have. This is another short game against, I don't know how to pronounce it, Gligorich, I don't know. Sorry?
Gligorich.
Gligorich, okay. Thank you. Larsen is black in this one. And what was this from? This was from the Capablanca Memorial in Cuba.
Yeah, I knew he'd play that move.
What? Larsen's back again.
Yeah. Gligorich always plays 1d4.
Yeah.
Hey, the Nimzo Indian, great stuff.
Oh yes, this is your favourite, isn't it? I've forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd play c5 over.
Right. So what? Bearing in mind this is 1967, what Larsen says is, I had not played 4b6 for many years. I used to be afraid of the variation knight G going back, knight G E2, bishop A6, knight G3.
This happened in the Portish Fischer game.
It did, yeah.
And
Okay.
Fischer was quite critical of this. He said, why play your knight to E2 if you're not going to play A3 and win the two bishops?
Well, okay. I mean, Fischer thought the French defence was unsound, so yeah, you know, not all his views were equally valid, but yeah, okay, I agree with him.
Well, it was a famous game because Fischer ended up with a queen against two rooks. And
Yeah, I know it, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was actually in his 60 memorable games, I think.
It is, yeah. It definitely is, yeah. He says here, I used to be afraid of the variation. I don't know if B6 was a surprise to Gligorich, but he may have been afraid of a theoretical improvement. At least he did not choose the continuation, which theory considers the critical line at that time. You know, you have to remember this is at that time before computers or any regular flow of information. It was all informative, wasn't it? So B6. I might play B3. We said, didn't we?
Yeah.
So B7, knight F3. F5, bishop E4. This has been regarded as a strong move. In my opinion, it is not very good. That's Larsen.
Normal to play knight D2.
Knight D2, yeah.
That's what Kasparov has played.
C3, C3. Castles. And he says, this move was part of my opening recommendations for the Danish team before the Chess Olympiad in Havana 1966. But nobody got the opportunity to use it. So obviously he obviously had ideas for the Danish Olympiad team. Queen G4. So looking good because D5 isn't on because the Queen E6 is on. But so he just plays Rook F5. And if knight takes pawn, what does black play?
H5.
Correct. Winning a piece. So knight takes E4 isn't on. So Queen G4 is looking a bit suspect. He played D5, which is a strange move, but okay. Rook G5. F4, ED5, CD5, Bishop D5, C4, Bishop C6. So now the pawn is dropping off. But there's obviously coloured bishops, and Black's rook's in a good position in G2. The knight
pressure on G2.
Yeah, the knight's a problem. That's the only thing I'm good. Yeah, but anyway. So he says bishop C6. He just brought it back from D5. He says much better than bishop B7, as bishop and pawn protect each other, The knight does not need this square. Right. Rook g6, bishop b2, knight a6. And I quite like Black's position here, but his view is Black has a microscopic advantage because of the weak white pawns on the queen side. That's all he thinks, you know. So White played f3 here, which seems reasonable. It's blocking off pressure on g2, you know. He gives it a question mark. He says White should have played knight g3, preparing e4, which I would probably have answered with queen g5. After the exchange of queens, I would try to exploit the white pawn weaknesses. So he can play, but he's probably not better. But he's Black, you know. And it's Literate, so he doesn't like f3 though. And the move he played here was not necessarily obvious to me, but what would you play here, anybody?
Knight c5?
No, he just takes it off, I think, and then plays e4.
Yeah, bad. Pawn structure.
Yeah.
I would have thought you'd play something like d6.
He doesn't want to do that because it loosens up things, and it also loosens, you know. I mean, it's the move you might have to play sometimes, but he doesn't want to do it unless he has
Oh, well, how about queen e7?
Yeah, it might be a good move. He didn't play that. He played knight b4, which wouldn't have occurred to me, to be honest. Anybody?
Knight d3 threat.
Yeah, threat, yeah. Still, though, hard to believe it's...
d1.
Rook fd1 now.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. He played bishop c3, interestingly. Why did he do that? That's the question.
God knows.
Yeah, he does. He's clever enough.
Yeah, he had an idea. He doesn't talk about it. And he's not saying he's much better here. He does play knight d3. Knight plays queen f5.
Where's the knight going?
Well, he's probably going to take on e4 and play knight c5.
He didn't, but it's an idea.
Well, he could have done that before, couldn't he?
Could have done that directly
Yeah,
with playing knight b4. So,
Yeah.
He plays a move here which he gives 2 exclamation marks, even though the reason for that is because how an idea he saw 5 moves hence.
This is Black to move here.
Yeah. So the move itself is not that surprising, but it is it's the beginning of the sequence.
Black's move, is it?
It's sorry.
Is it Black's move?
Black's move, yeah. White's just played queen f5 because his
Queen h4.
Queen h4.
Yeah.
Queen
h4.
Correct.
Right.
And he says, if I had not foreseen my 25th move, this is move 20, I would have been satisfied with queen e7, knight f6, rook f6, queen d3, when the game is almost even, although Black may still claim that the weak white queenside pawns are weak. Of course, this does not mean that I calculated 5 moves ahead in all variations, but the game continuation decided for me the question where to go with the queen. I would only allow my own pawns to be weakened if I got a strong attack from it, which gives you the clue what White's next move is, or should do. So he played queen f5 for a reason. He's x-raying through to the knight.
Yes, he plays knight f6.
Correct. Whoops. What am I wrong? Why's that not working? Yeah, knight f6. And obviously, if rook takes knight, bishop takes, and then queen takes knight. So he's got to take it with the pawn. And queen takes d3. And then he plays rook h6, which is an accurate move, he says. It has to be played in this order.
Could you go back a couple of moves, please? Thank you.
And? So I thought you wanted to say something, Martin, sorry.
No, I was just, it was all moving too quick. I couldn't.
Oh,
follow.
sorry, okay.
Go back.
Right, so So White has
Black's
played.
threatening rook f8, so White's got to do something.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. Knight f6 looks quite a good move.
Yeah.
It does.
So he
It
takes.
weakens the pawn structure.
It does, and as he said, I don't like doing that unless I get a strong attack. And by strong, he means very strong.
Does he play Queen H3 now?
No, he played rook
No, he
h6.
played rook h6, which he says is the only move that must be played now. You know, he can't play them in different sequences. It has to be played out first.
That forces h3, doesn't it?
Forces h3, correct?
Then he goes back. Rook g6.
No, he plays. Do you remember the Van Skeltinger game?
Yeah, he likes his subtle king moves, doesn't he?
King f7.
Correct. Well remembered, Colin.
Rook g8.
It was king f2 then, but the same idea. Yeah.
Rook g8's coming. It's similar to the last game where he played rook g1.
It is, yeah. Oh, I've lost the move here. What's the rook doing there? The rook's not shouldn't be there. Where's the rook?
Rook f2.
King f7, rook f2, correct.
Yeah, got to play that, I think.
And now rook g8.
Threatening Queen h3.
And he's trying to escape with his king, which seems reasonable, you know.
If he went King h1, could he have played Queen h3?
Sorry?
I was just looking at Queen h3, or
when?
If he played King h1.
King h1, the
I
rook's
don't think it quite works.
the rook on f2.
Yeah, that's right. The rook's on prey, isn't it? So you can't play that anyway.
No. And now this is move 25. So this is the move he's seen before he played Queen h4.
Well, maybe he plays Rook g2 now.
He does.
Oh, wow.
And he says, the reason I'm proud of this sacrifice is that I saw it long before. The combination itself is not very difficult, but without it, White would be all right.
Queen h3.
And he says, Black has three threats. Queen takes f3 check, bishop takes f3, and rook g6. White can defend against two of them, but not all three. The variations are really quite simple. Well, it's all relative, isn't it, chaps?
Very good.
He says, Gligorich has thought of the rook sacrifice, at least when he played rook b2, 24 rook f2. He explained afterwards that he had overlooked that the black queen was defending the queen's pawn. So that is defending that. So after bishop f3, he thought he could play queen takes d7 check, therefore black couldn't play bishop f3. This is important in the variation king g1, bishop takes f3. People who study the psychology of errors claim that the long diagonal move backwards is one of the categories of moves overlooked most frequently. Here then is an example of such an oversight. But of course, it is also true that you overlook something more easily if you've been under pressure for some time. In fact, this game has, since 11 rook f5, taken such a course that Gligorich has been feeling he had his back to the wall. And in the position where the oversight was made, he had no absolutely satisfactory continuation.
So what was White's mistake?
Why doesn't White do e4 now?
He did do e4.
That defends it.
Remember what I said? There were three moves. Queen f3, bishop f3, and rook g6. So that leaves rook g6 after e4.
Queen h1's a big threat.
Queen h1's a threat, isn't it?
Well, queen g2 is also a threat, but queen h1, yeah.
He has to
He's
play.
going to play Queen e2, isn't he, I should think?
Sorry?
Well, Queen h1.
Queen a2, yeah, that's right. He's got no way of avoiding losing the rook.
As Larsen said, there were three lines: bishop f3, queen f3, and rook g6, and he just stopped queen f3 and bishop f3, leaving rook g6. And Gligorich resigned at this point.
Yeah, he just picks up the g2 rook.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
it is quite amusing that he played the king f7 and rook g8 idea, again, but in a much more controlled way. And
Yeah.
he's proud of that because he saw that exact sequence with the rook h6 first before he played queen h4.
He likes king f7 or king f2, doesn't he?
He does. Well, in those two games he does anyway.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite amusing to show those because of the echo, you know. I can do one more, which I haven't done prep for, but I can do it from the book if you want to see it. Have we got time for it?
Yes, surely, Mark, if it's quick.
It's a slightly longer one, but I'll go through it quite quickly. It's against Petrosian.
Oh.
He had two. There were two games in the book against Petrosian. The first one he's white and it's a Sicilian, and he hacks him up with Queen sack on G6. But it's a bit pedestrian, really. This is a positional game, and I think it's quite a nice game. Anyway, let me just bring it up.
Okay.
I have to go through it fairly quickly though, because it is a bit longer. Okay, in this game, well, let me just find the game first in the book, so I can make some comments from it. So this is Larsen's black playing the King's Indian, which he doesn't. He talks about this in a minute, actually. In fact, I've always had a feeling that the King's Indian is an incorrect opening! Exclamation mark! Because I also believe that all the leading Soviet masters know more about it than I do. I feel I'm embarking upon something very dangerous every time I play it against one of them. On the other hand, this may make me more watchful. At this point in the tournament, I'd only scored half a point during the last 5 rounds. I had not been feeling well, and I had played without energy and concentration. So now I am playing an opening in which I am convinced that flabby routine play leads to disaster.
Is he white or black?
Black. I said that. Yeah, Petrosian is white. Larsen is black. I'm not sure Petrosian played King's Indian. I don't know. Maybe he did. I don't remember it.
He scored heavily against the King's Indian on the white side.
No, but didn't play it as black, did he? Is my point.
He might have done once or twice. I'm not sure.
Not often. No.
Yeah.
If you spank it that badly, you're not going to play it as black, are you? I don't suppose.
He played a lot of openings though. You know.
Mark.
He did, yeah.
Well, specifically on Tiger and Petrosian playing the King's Indian.
Yeah.
Yes.
You did play it as black.
He did play it as black from time to time, but he had more success with the white side of it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. As Colin says, absolutely played some superb games with it, didn't he?
Yeah.
I couldn't comment on the theory of this, and this is 1966. Remember, at Santa Monica, by the way. All seems reasonable positionally, but I don't know what the
Up the front.
Might be one. Four. So this is a bit weird. It's more like a King's Indian attack structure, except that he's also advanced on the Queen side. So I mean, he's not going to play a King's Indian attack. It's not the right setup. But you know what I mean? It's that setup of pieces in the pawn. So white played Rook C2. Larsen says worth considering was King H1, but Black's H4 will become a threat again later after Bishop H6. So we talked about his rook pawn moves. He's played them. Neighbour is H4. Eat your heart out, Alpha 0.
Well, he wants to answer G4 with G5, doesn't he?
Yeah. Okay, what are we doing here? That's F1.
Knight F1.
What do you want to play?
G4, yeah.
Sorry?
G4.
G4, G5, wins a piece.
Hmm.
That's the problem with King B on H2.
That's right. Yeah, because he's been putting him a pen.
So knight F1. An important move, the diagonal A6 to F1 will now play a role in Black's plans. If the bishop moves to A6, it will threaten the white knight and share in the attack against the weak white G pawn. I consider this a winning position and told Donna that if I did not win it, I really would go and see a doctor.
Yeah, I thought.
The black superiority may be described in many ways. More space, better pawn structure. I would think space is a bit irrelevant in these positions, but better pawn structure, more active pieces. Very important, the white queen's bishop is bad and not just temporarily. As a matter of fact, it is doomed to passivity for the rest of the game. In relation to the fixed centre pawns, the black queen's bishop is also bad in inverted commas. But if you look at its possibilities, above all on the diagonal A6 F1, it is difficult to term it a bad bishop. On the contrary, it is so strong that the world champion makes up his mind to exchange it. Not a very attractive result, but as already hinted, white might find it difficult to hold the G pawn when black played the bishop to A6 and was ready to chase the white knight away with G5.
Yeah.
Okay. There's H4 here. Knight C7. H3. But one of the opponent's bishops is very bad. It is, as a rule, sound policy to trade off the other one. After bishop A6, might get a little bit of play on the king's side with G4. Gordon, G4. So, you know, in some positions it's bad, in some positions it's good. Piece positioning. Bishop F8. King G2. I must say, if you didn't know, you think Petrosian was black here, wouldn't you? I would anyway.
What was the point of bishop F8?
To
bring
it in a minute.
Come to D6, I
D6,
think.
yeah, he's sitting G pawn and the black square, but G pawn in particular. T6. Bishop C1. It's looking bleak, isn't it? On the other hand, black's got to break through somewhere. G7. To bishop 4. So he's bringing his pieces to really good squares here. H3. Queen back. Yeah.
Be a king move.
King's got to move.
King to knight 2, yeah. Comes back again. That plays king to knight 2, knight to rook 1. I mean, if it wasn't Petrosian playing white, you think this is awful at defence, but Petrosian, one of the greatest defenders there's ever been.
You play knight G.
So you can tell it's a bad position for him, you know. Knight H6, correct. Very good, Colin, yeah. E1. So this is awful for white, but black's still got to win it. That's the problem with these sort of positions, with close positions, you know. Oh, that was the sealed move, by the way. Then I analysed the position until 7 o'clock in the morning. There were only 2 hours left for sleep, but I became absolutely confident I could win. The threat is Queen F1 check. And then knight E3.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Queen F1 followed by knight takes E3.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's out of nowhere, isn't it? It's, you know, I mean, you can see that black's got better pieces and everything, but you still need tactics to win it, really. So there's all sorts of analysis. I'm not going to go into it, but white played Queen D2, and black played Bishop B8, which knight's D1.
Queen D6.
Not to knight 5 actually. And now he played a move you should never play John Upham and Colin Jordan.
You've given it away.
I know.
But not G5.
No, F6. Never play F6 is what Ben Feingold says. It's a joke, but it's, you know. He says, he gives an exclamation mark. The clearest winning procedure on which I had only concentrated after rejecting another idea, the exchange of one pair of knights. Blah, blah, blah. Advancing the G pawn is logical. Black wins still more space, and there are possibilities of breaking into the white position via the F or H file.
Green. H6.
Not that obvious that opening the F or the H file is
Not at all.
superb for black.
No, it's clear it gives them another option, but it's not clear that it's winning, is it? I mean,
Right, yeah.
Well, not to me, it isn't. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, well, he analysed for a long. He analysed it for 7 hours, so you begin to wonder if he was too tired because he was ill anyway. Hang on, wait a minute. Whose dog is that? What's
that dog?
Who is that?
No.
It's Julian's dog. He likes that move.
Oh, he does. Good.
He hasn't got a dog. It's Julian who's making that noise.
I'm getting confused here. He went knight to rook 3. I'm getting lost here. He can play both knights to rook 3. I've got the moves wrong here. No. Let's see what happens.
Black to move.
This is too subtle for me.
Yeah, well, don't forget he spent 7 hours analysing the German, so it's not something he found easy either.
It seems to me they have everything covered.
Yeah, quite. And now he plays pawn to knight 5, which is interesting because if I can get a knight to F4, it's not so easy to do that. They're not on the right circuit.
I think he might try to get a knight into F3.
Yeah, he might. I think he doesn't, obviously. It's certainly an idea. Bishop D6, stopping invasion on C5.
Oh, yeah.
1. Knight G8.
Oh, if we go knight F7.
It is possible to imagine 2 different winning manoeuvres: knight to F6 and queen to H6. The former, however, is difficult to carry out because of the threats against the black G pawn. But against the latter, there is no defence. I had already made up my mind to use this queen mover, but for safety's sake, I wanted to pass the time control at move 56 before I did anything irrevocable. I was very sleepy. This explains moves 53 and 56. So he repeats of it here, does it? So there's another time control at move 56, so he got some time after that. What does he play now? Sorry, I've got a loop. H5. So he's possibly here to reach the time control. Even though he's worked out the ideas overnight. I don't know, a bit odd.
Understand what the knight's doing on H5.
Right, now, queen. I like this.
Oh, I can see what he's going to do now.
Yeah. Well, he said it. He's coming on the H file.
Back on G3 and play queen H3.
White cannot do a thing. Yeah, so he's arriving on G3. So white plays queen C6. And he takes on G3. Bishop takes, knight takes. And he's arriving on H1 here. And at this point, Petrosian resigned. So how's it finish, chaps?
Knight takes knight. Queen
H3 check.
Yeah, that's right.
King goes anywhere. Queen takes knight.
Queen H. Yeah.
Followed by queen F3.
Sorry?
Queen takes knight, followed by queen F3. Queen F3.
No.
Not queen F3?
No.
Queen G2.
No.
Knight takes E3. No.
Queen takes E3.
Thank you, Colin Purden.
Queen takes E3.
So he would have got his queen sack in this game as well, but he wasn't allowed it.
Yeah.
It's a nice idea that, because it's
Yeah. Cool, that's nice.
Yeah. That was a class game. I mean, against Petrosian of all people,
Yeah.
that was a class game.
Yeah, he squeezed Petrosian.
Yeah, unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And he wasn't thought to be that sort of player, but he could play everything. He played everything, Anyway, that's that. I want to close. That's my last game. I want to close off with just a little thing at the end of the book. So at the end of the book, there's a section called About My Style, followed by this 12-move win against Botsov. And I'm only going to make a brief quote because it sums up Larsen's annotation style to me and his personality. There's a bit of stuff around it, but he says, "What is my style? A good deal has been said and written about this, and it has not all been nonsense." I think it's a great line. That was one of the. But there's a few things after that. He says, Pologorski has written, "I like to push my rook pawns. Grigorich has stated that there are more flank attacks in my games than in those of other contemporary masters. There is probably some truth in this. One charming characteristic of many flank attacks I could mention is that they do not very often lead to simplification. If the attack is parried, there are usually opportunities still left for initiating an action in another sector. So he wants to win. He doesn't want to simplify into a position that isn't winning. He wants more chances to attack elsewhere in the central and the queenside side. So that sums him up for me. And I think he's one of my favourite players. And this is my favourite chess book of all time. And if you haven't got it, you might even be desperate enough to buy the Hard and Simple version. It's well worth it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Well
Mark.
done.
Thank you.
Stuff.
Mark. Thank you, Mark.
That's all right. No, that's all right. I hope that was reasonably enjoyable.
Very good.
Yeah. People don't know Larsen that well, I don't think, but great player.
I met him.
How many people have met him?
I have.
You've met him? Have you? Where did you meet him?
Well, I met him up in London. Bill Hartston and him were given a symbol, and I played in the Bill Hartston game. I lost in 62 moves. It's quite early in my chess career, and but he was there, and I did talk to him for a few minutes.
So was he playing? Who was playing the symbol? Hartston.
Yeah, Hartston and him were both playing.
They were doing a tandem symbol, playing alternate moves.
No, both of them played a certain amount each.
Oh, okay.
I actually played Hartston, and the game lasted for 62 moves, but he beat me in the end, in the ending. And but afterwards, I did talk to Larsen for a minute or two.
So
about 1980
as well.
How did you meet him?
A simultaneous display in 1973. In fact, Colin Purden kindly ran through the game, I think back in August time or whenever it was, on this call. Unfortunately, we didn't record it, but I had a very long game with him. I can't remember how many moves, something like 75.
Drawn ending.
Yeah, rook and pawn ending. I mean, I was losing.
I remember seeing the game. I didn't realise it was Larsen though at the time. Sorry.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wish we'd recorded it, but if you're interested,
Yeah. Send it, of course, yeah.
I was the last player playing. I was only 14 years old, and it was a highlight of my chess career, definitely.
It is tough when it gets 1-to-1, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it was going round and round and round. 200 players or whatever it was, and then of course it gets down to smaller and smaller numbers, and in the end you're standing there in front of him, and you don't know whether you have to move quickly but he was very gracious. He clearly indicated to me to take my time, and all these people were around, and he was very happy to play. I mean, I don't know, he probably won 180 of the 185 games or whatever, I don't know, but yeah, it's really interesting. And
it's interesting that he does that, because a lot of top players are desperate to win even simultaneous games. By any means possible. Yeah.
I remember him being very friendly, and I can't remember who organised it. I think it might have been Eddie Penn, and I think Bill might have been involved as well, because the other game that we showed, I don't know if you remember Colin P, but we showed the game that I played against Bill Hartson, and we couldn't remember, or I couldn't remember when it was. It may have been at the same time, and that might be why I've forgotten.
Did we go for the Hartston game? I thought we went for the Miles game.
Oh no, it was a Tony Miles game.
Yeah.
I'm getting confused. Bill Hartston was, I think Bill Hartston was around with Eddie Penn and Larsen at that time. That's what I'm getting confused about.
I see. Right.
Yeah, it was Tony Miles.
And Martin, did you say you drew that game?
No, I lost.
Okay.
It was that much in it, though. You know, really, it's a rook and pawn ending. You kind of expect to be outplayed in them, but it was still, even with that, it was so close. Yeah. There was a line which forced it, wasn't there? In fact, it didn't give him wiggle room even to play on. I think that was
that's a pity, that, isn't it? You must have been tired after that long, though.
Oh my God,
you're standing there with over you.
I was knackered. Anyway, thank you very much, Mark. It was great.
You're welcome.
Really good.